Yeah, it's a really good one. I mean, there's not going to be a lot of code samples and stuff to do. It's just more about going to be talking about what they actually are in comparisons to languages that we already know and use. I mean, that's the most important thing because you end up with quite a lot of structs in your code, I guess. Especially when you're doing your own stuff.
And what?
Yeah, so the struct is just like an object in other languages, but it cannot have any methods. At least not when you declare the struct, right?
Yep.
So it's an empty object, essentially.
Yeah, it's a collection of types that makes sense to have together, and they're kept in memory together, like an abstraction, like a user.
Yeah, like everything else, obviously it's strongly typed as well. So it's like you have to declare it up front before you use it.
Yeah.
To define a struct, we enter the keyword struct and the entire and then the entire struct. The struct's name should describe the significance of the piece of data being grouped together. And in Rust, yeah, they tend to call them fields. In JavaScript, we call them properties. What do you guys like? Object fields.
I think there is a distinction in that, like, they don't have property access, right?
Well, they have property access as in you can just do user.name after you've instantiated it and you can access that. So we get a playground open so we can.
But it's different in that you don't have like array access, which is very.
That's actually you can have a private property in the struct.
You can.
Am I right?
Yeah, you can. Yeah.
Can you?
They're private by default.
No, I don't think so because in the
No, aren't they the same exposure as the struct itself?
Yeah.
And
So let's look at.
them.
Oh, this is something I
Oh, I don't know.
tweeted the other day. Oh, so good. Let's delete all that. Yeah, the person is a good example. What example do they give user? So let's copy that in. So the first thing to know is like.
You make this a little bit bigger.
Like in Rust, you know, if you think of PHP where you would have a separate class file for everything like this, it's like that's not really how it works in Rust. It's more like, I would say it's more like JavaScript in the sense that you just have these little data structures. I guess that's why they chose struct as the name. But yeah, you just kind of put it in the same file as some functionality, and then it's like top level.
So like prototype.
Kind of. But it's more about the fact that yeah, you often when you look through other people's Rust code, you just tend to see them top level like this, don't you? I don't know if you can.
Then you use a manual though, also being defined.
yeah.
In the scope of that like file or the module as it's called. So in this case, like you could easily say, so let user equals user. Then you would have to, I'm just going to get rid of some of these fields. It's going to be annoying to have to do all them first. So if it only had a username field, you would have to instantiate that here. And actually, yeah, this straight away gets onto an interesting thing with types. But if I say Shane there, that's actually not going to work, which is really odd at first. Anyone want to explain why it doesn't work?
Because it's a string general or string size.
Correct them on down.
So it's not an actual type. In a sense.
Yeah.
So it's a reference to the string, right?
So that's a string slice.
It's
Which is
a
on.
immutable reference to the string.
Yeah. And we've said a.
Oh, you needed a semicolon as well. I was confused by that.
Oh, sorry, I wasn't even looking at the error. I was so confident, I wasn't even looking at the error. There you go, mismatch type. So straight away, the two fixes are either make it into a string, and there are other ways of doing this, but we'll keep it simple. Watching a video the other day, and this guy was saying how weird it is when you see this, like, because so many other languages that is just a string anyway, and then you turn it into a string. But obviously, once you know Rust a bit, you know why that's the case.
Yeah.
Alternatively, you can make this a string slice, but then you have to introduce lifetimes and stuff. So
yeah.
I don't think we should dive into
Let's
that.
not cover that before
No.
right
He
now.
mentions that in the chapter.
Yeah.
Single quotes and double quotes have an impact.
Yeah.
Yeah, some
You can have simple quotes for a string, only for a character, I think.
for a character.
But some, yeah, you put simple quotes to a character right away.
So
You can have multiple characters.
that's one way of instantiating it. I think that's just an error because we're not using the variable. So then if you wanted to print line, I'm just going through the absolute basics here. You would say user equals, and then you would say user.name.
Yeah,
Username.
that's all public by default, right? If that works, I think it does.
Well, public in this scope, but like you couldn't export this. You could, if someone brings this in.
No, yeah, I mean inside the user. So
Yeah.
whoever has access to the user can just call user.username to read the thing.
Yeah.
Whereas in PHP, you can't do that unless you define that the property is public.
Yeah.
Explicitly.
No, you can make them private. Can't you?
Can you make it
I just can't
private
remember how you do it.
in here?
I have 100% seen that. I just don't know.
What you tend to see for that, what I've seen is that they have like an inner struct wrapping it, and they call .inner, so the outer structure has no properties on it.
Yeah.
That's what
Maybe
you,
it's that.
and then you
Yeah.
see a lot of like getter methods. So that's one way of instantiating it. And obviously, if you were doing multiple fields, what is good about Rust is it's quite lax with the syntax, so you can kind of do this however you want it to be. If you wanted to do that, and then if you wanted to add an email, and obviously the normal type stuff holds true. So this would be a failure because the email doesn't exist yet.
So it basically has its own predefined construct into a struct.
It's different to other languages in that like you can't just assign these things.
If you think about JavaScript,
Even in PHP, you can do that, right? Like you've got an object and then you can assign shit to it afterwards.
yeah, you can assign object property chain equals developer, for example,
Even to a class, yeah, you can do that, right?
after the fact.
Yeah. If it's public, I think you can do it.
But yeah, so that's just the basics of. To make that pass, we have to do the same thing.
It's not color on the user thing.
Oh yeah.
And you probably need to take the second one off if it's.
No, it allows.
It
Yeah, allows
In fact,
That really annoys me when you have a 2-line diff and.
yeah, for one line. Yeah, that's why.
I'm pretty sure it's advised by the default code comments, isn't it? If you got rid of that email comment at the end, doesn't it complain about
Don't think it does now.
that? Rust format does, doesn't it?
Yeah, so that's the basics of like instantiating.
So the next thing is like when you have a variable, right? That is the same name as the field.
Oh yeah, so we look at the short properties. Is that what you want to go into? Right. So
just briefly mention that.
yeah, this is really cool. And so if you had this above it, let's do what they do. String from. So that's the same thing.
Yeah.
And we can do email.
That's basically variables.
But
Well,
this
yeah,
structuring based on the variable.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we've already covered variables in other times, yeah. But the more important thing is that that's shorthand for doing that.
If you had like a function, sorry, when you pass in username and email,
Yeah.
and it's construct the user very easily and return it.
Yeah, exactly.
This example is
Does it matter if you change the order in the struct, so you have email first,
No.
no, it still works.
it still works, as long as the variable's the same name, so it understands the context of,
Yeah.
Rather what PHP doesn't do, it doesn't understand the context of the variable name you're putting in.
What about this, Diego, which will come under the like creating a new one, but it's worth showing. This is more likely what you would see.
Yeah. So if you leave out the how do you call it the semicolon at the end, that becomes the return of the function.
Yep.
You don't need to put return.
So that'll actually lead us well onto something else. So if we can now say, just do the debug and say create user based on user name and email. Will that work?
Derived debug.
Oh,
You need to put your
Yeah, medium
derived
or derived.
yeah.
derived debug in.
That's a pretty cool thing as well, Derive. He implements the interface for you.
Yeah. Sweet. So then you get that below.
Yeah.
And you use it. So
So that defines the debug method on the struct.
That's so cool.
Derive?
Yeah.
Yeah. If you can use that for you.
Yeah, basically it only will work if the types are all type derived debug as well. Sorry, implement debug. Derive debug implements debug for you, which is a trait. And basically the trait just gives you a debug function. And basically all the primitives like float and string and whatever have debug given for free. So if your struct contains just those, then you can't. It'll just define what that default formatting should look like, and that's what you do now. It's printed out.
It's actually really nice. It's very similar to JavaScript and PHP, but clean.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's lent itself from destructuring and things like that.
Yeah, it's just cherry picked all the best bits of all the languages, basically. Right. So the next thing is in the book is to say, right, we've now instantiated a user. So this is now a type user, and obviously that would be completely type checked via these parameters. So then it's like saying, well, how do you modify the username, for example? So, and I know this is going to fail, but I'm just going to type it out. So you might think you could go username. User.username equals something they typed in a form somewhere. So here you go. And what's going to happen? Ah, that is true. Hang on.
That's hurdle.
No, that's good. That's good. All right, the first hurdle was that. Oh, it's not string new, it's string from. Sorry.
That's the second one.
My second one. Boom. So you can't. So everything in Rust is immutable by default. So you can't assign property to it.
Yeah, so you need let mute there, but don't you need interior mutability as well? Or do you get that for free?
The whole object is mutable. It's just like the struct. You can't specify separate fields.
Yeah, I think if you say that the user here is a mutable reference to the user, then it's all going to be mutable. I think. So we try it.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, that's the key.
So you can make them immutable.
Yeah.
But you make it mutable at the point that you use it.
Yeah.
So like here, by putting that there, you're saying that anyone in this scope who tries to access the user, they can mutate it basically.
Is that bad practice? What do you reckon?
No, well, no, because you need to do it a lot. But the key thing is that
It's explicit.
it's very specific.
Yeah.
Like you can't accidentally do something. You have to be explicit and say that when you want to mutate something. And when it's going over threads, it gets more important.
And crucially, you can only have one mutable reference at a time. So there's no way you can fuck up. You can have two variables with mutable access to some memory at a time.
So
It won't come back. It won't come back.
That's why people are afraid of mutability. Really, like the fact that you have multiple things calling and changing things.
Yep. So I saw in a talk when people were saying, people always say that mutability is bad, and what's the other thing?
Level state.
Yeah, but they're saying that they're only bad if it's unmanaged, and Rust basically via the borrowing and type checking makes it managed. So all of a sudden mutability is no more dangerous than anything else. Cool. So that's how you would do that.
Yeah.
Any questions on?
Isn't there a way to make that username private?
No.
Or non-mutable?
No, because
No, because then when you pass it into a function, when you pass the whole object, how do you then type it? Are you getting a mutable reference of the object?
the way-
back from the text immutable, or how do
I'm
you?
trying to remember the
Wait.
case where I've needed to create a setup. I needed to, not just because it looked better.
So you can put methods on struct.
yeah,
Yeah,
so I think
so that's
we get to that in a
We'll
minute.
get to that, yeah. Not on the struct itself.
Okay, so we
So we've
could.
already done that actually with Derive debug. Debug is now a method on the struct.
Oh, cool. We've actually just covered quite a lot of that already. That's
No,
good.
the whole section already.
Yeah.
I know, except tuple, sorry. I'll go with tuple.
I mean, tuples is just another struct type, which just takes
This is
just a bit.
yeah, this is interesting. I've not actually used this before. I didn't realize you could do that
Which
using the fields of one struct to construct another. So
destructuring, yeah, that one. Yeah.
let's just we'll do a simpler example. So let's say we've got this.
Do Derive default up at the top. This is a better example than the books. Put at the top, put a comma there and put default. And now default's a method which returns an object with default values.
Yeah, so like you can do.
So you can do user. So do another method Let's just return default. In fact, you could just create a new variable called like user2. And then just do user : default. Yeah, and that's returning you a user with the default values.
Yep, which will be empty strings in this case.
Yeah. Yeah, so they're blank strings. So if you print this out now, it will have it exists now as a user, but it just has default values.
But crucially, you can implement default. That's the point, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
Is that you can, if you want to define how this works, so Rust just looks at the type, I'm guessing, and just basically figures out a sensible default if it can.
For an integer, it will be 0.
So there you go. Like, so you get an empty username and email.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you changed it to, if you wanted age.
I can't remember what these methods are called now with the double columns.
Let me just get rid of that line.
So when you say the default, you mean the stuff that's like from the original source? Like,
Yeah.
oh,
Well, so what it's done is that each
So let's give you a
has
0 there. Look.
an implementation of default, and so string returns blank string. Usize here returns 0.
right.
Float returns 0.0. Like they all implement like a
line
default
inside
thing.
value, basically.
And so then when you do derive default, it creates the method for you based on all the struct fields. So basically, like as soon as you run that function, it just returns. It's like the create user function. Basically, it's created it for you, and it just turns like, oh, you just want a blank string here, basically.
Not video anymore.
Okay.
Why?
We're probably not using the video.
Yeah, probably not. Because I'm sharing my screen. Yeah.
Yeah, whereas Zoom will do both.
Okay.
So with a struct is you must meet all of this criteria when you create a subject.
Yeah.
We've got PHP reference. That's actually quite a bit of work to do that, usually, isn't it? You've got to define.
Although you can, so you can partially create one. That's kind of the next bit. So
yeah, what I was going to say then is like now you can use that method which we've just used, then to.
Oh, can you
To
actually?
description.
So now you pass 2 parameters, and you can say the rest use the default.
So you
In fact, you can use construct, can't you?
No, in PHP, yeah, you can do it,
Yeah. It's
but
construct.
the issue is that for all the types to be checked, then you will have to do strict typing, and it's only per file.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really protect you, whereas Rust will. This is bulletproof, like.
So that's how you do a partial. That's one of the ways of doing a partial object.
I don't understand the default thing, but I just use a default thing.
Would that do the same thing?
It does the same thing, but I don't understand how the default works, to be honest.
So that's obviously is a more realistic example, like what you're saying in PHP, where you haven't got all the fields up front. Well, the point is either you allow Rust to give you a sensible default, or you would implement default, which we're not going to get into today because I ain't got time. But basically, you would implement the default trait for the user. Then you can define all the fields and what the default values are.
Do you want to add a method now?
Yeah.
Skip the tuple, yeah.
Yeah, skip the tuples because
Let's just add a method.
Yeah, sure.
Can you stack structs so you can say this is a user?
Absolutely.
This is an admin user which implements user.
It doesn't have inheritance.
but oh sorry, yeah.
Oh,
So
traits. So
That's
yes, you can have traits.
traits.
but if you wanted to do a role, I'll just give you a quick example of that. If you want to do a role, then you would have a enum roles.
Yeah.
And you would say admin and user. And you would say that role takes a role. Oh, would that be a no without an S? Anyway, I don't care. Then here, let's get rid of that. Now you would have to specify what role they have.
What one thing is, let's say you've got customer B2B customer. Your B2B customer is going to have an account number, a credit account number, for instance, that a user wouldn't.
Yeah.
Would you have 2 different structs then, or would you have a struct as a
Possibly.
user and a struct as a B2B user?
Well, that's what I'm showing you here. Look, is that you could easily assign a role. So even though structs have got to be strongly
You
typed,
need to
Derive,
derive.
even though structs are strongly typed, if you want to do a variant, that's what enums in Rust are all about.
But I think in Rust you will have to create 2 structs for admin user and normal user
Yeah.
to be,
If you want to, yes.
I mean, it depends on your construction. Right? Like some people do.
That's
need them
interesting.
Like this. And
That's interesting. Look, the so because we tried to derive default on the user, it kind of like what you said. It has to be also true for all of its fields.
Yeah, so you can't even do that.
So I can't derive default
So
anymore
You could implement default
on roles. Yeah.
On roles. Yeah. Can you do that?
You could, but you could put like.
No, I mean like just do it now, like import default for roles, isn't it? I think.
I would also add a none in the email.
Sorry?
I'd have like a none in the email. It doesn't have.
Yeah, what's the?
Sorry, he's just making it more complicated.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Just default to user.
Default default.
Yeah, you can import to use it.
And then I think just return the yeah.
Yeah.
I think this will work. Oh, cool. Yeah.
Cool. And I did say admin below. That's why it's there.
All right.
So if I get rid
so
of that
you
now.
could go back to how you were before, where you were deriving the
Oh, nice.
not like that. That's not what. You need to do ... default.
Oh yeah.
Sorry, double dot. It fucks me up every time. That's good.
Sweet. So that's That's a good one to learn because I didn't know that. With yeah,
Oh my God.
if you want to do a default enum, you can just do it like that. Simple as that.
Mm.
I've done some quite complicated enums, but I've not had to do a default yet. But like, obviously, you can take types. Sorry, you can take parameters and all sorts of crazy stuff, which I'm sure we'll get to at some point.
Yeah, Eden's a chapter after.
Yeah, it's so.
Sorry, we just covered the next.
They're so cool, and actually, when you start using Rust a lot, like when you look at library code and stuff, they're so fundamental to how everything works in Rust. It's crazy.
But at the same time, it's good that everyone's thinking about stuff that's done next in the book.
Yeah,
It means
totally.
The book's logical, and we're also logically
Yeah.
following it.
So do you want to implement a method as well? Because you've implemented.
I think we should, yeah, because we've got 10. Yeah.
You've implemented a implementation, but not just a part of the.
Okay, so let's say the user wants to do what's the thing a user would normally do?
Say hi or.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Yeah. Okay. Let's do that. So below that one was because you're implementing a known trait for a struct or enum, but when you just want to add methods to the user, which is what John was on about, you can just do that.
We can just do it now.
Don't you fucking start with getters, mate.
I was like, hey, let's make it more complicated. Let's make it more like Java.
So they can answer this for everything.
Yeah, and so this, I can't remember the name for without and self.
Annotated function?
Something like that, isn't it?
Sorry.
And that's so what we've dealt with already is what we just said without and. Right? So that if you look back to the default implementation, that consumes roles here. And so that's very different. And so you need to use the colon syntax, right? Which is what you would use for new, right? If you're making a new function, like you consume the thing, right?
Yeah.
Whereas this is more like a method, right? Like you're taking a reference of self and doing some stuff on it.
Yeah.
This is quite obscure syntax, I think, for anyone that's new to Rust.
Yeah, I remember when I was first doing like the Hello Worlds of Rust back in like years ago when I was just following through the website, and I remember getting completely thrown off by all this. Now it.
That's what we talked about in the last lesson. Is if every function where you pass some parameter automatically takes ownership of the value.
Yeah.
So you have to be explicit of what kind of ownership it's getting.
So you can actually specify not and self, and it consumes the thing and destroys it.
Yeah, you actually don't change it. Yes, you could do that.
Cool. So let's just talk about the syntax. See if fine. Let me see if it compiles first, because that might not be fucking right. So let's print line that should be a 2.Greek. I'll just see if it compiles first, and we'll talk about what I did.
Just put an and for. Just put an and for.
Yeah.
Pro tip. Yeah.
Expected.
Is that message?
No, because message is just a string slice.
Oh, is that? Just do
Is it that? Because it's like you dereferencing the string.
Nah, if you
What the fuck are we doing wrong here? Oh, I know what it is. Sorry, it's none of that. It's because format doesn't return a string slice. It returns a string.
But then it's going to give you the other.
Cool.
Cool.
Nice. So yeah, let's go over this. So yeah, it's exactly how you would see it in any other language. You just call the method, and like you say, that then consumes the thingy, and you can add as many methods as you want. So we just said impl, fn, greet, and then the first parameter is a reference to self. And because we don't actually modify anything, we don't need to do like mutable self. If we wanted to change, if we want to have in fact, I might as well just quickly bash out another one. So if I want to say set username, typical PHP style, then we would go take a mutable reference to self, and the username, which is a string slice.
Yeah, sounds like pass by reference or a
That's right.
So set username would just be, and depending on how you're building the API, you might just go, and you see a complete mix of this in the wild. So there's no set thing, but it's like self.username equals username. Then the semicolon there means I'm not returning a user from this. Just like in PHP, if you want to do chaining, you have to like return the instance and whatever else. So let's just see if that runs.
No, it won't run because that will, but you won't be able to call the new method now.
Why?
Because the object that you have is not mutable, so you won't be able to give someone a mutable reference, right, to something that's not.
No, you
mutable.
can. Yeah, you'll still be able to write to it. Look. So if I go, sorry, yeah. So this is the thing: it doesn't return anything. So you'd have to go set username key, and then. Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. So we'd have to say it's mutable in this context. Yeah.
So that actually restricts. So if you pass an immutable reference to some function, that function can only call a subset of methods.
Yeah.
The ones that don't require you to have a mutable reference.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
there you go. Yeah.
so you won't always have access to all the methods in an object. Depends on what kind of access you have to the object.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Well, yeah. So we're saying
you
that.
have access, but the compiler just goes from there. Sorry.
Oh, yeah.
So that's pretty good. We've covered instantiation, covered defaults of a struct, how to apply methods to it, how to.
We covered derive, which is like
Trace
chapter 10 or something.
But this is really nice, and obviously here you could return. You just do self. Oh no, you just return user.
You can do self, I believe.
That's when you're doing it on a tray. You can do like uppercase self.
This is what happens.
So this is probably the last bit for the last 5 minutes to go over this. Like if you wanted to do chaining.
Yeah.
So let's say that wasn't. Let's say that was print line here. So we're not returning anything. Then you wanted to return self. So now you would return a user. Does that need to be self?
No, you put a semicolon after into the second function.
Yeah.
That's fine.
So now we should go. Let's say set username. That's it. I hope it does. This we all learn this.
Why we draw?
Yeah, let's.
What are you thinking?
Well, now you've got a lifetime issue as well. So,
oh yeah, because you're returning a reference to something.
well, you're also returning a reference to.
Oh, you can
So-
object.
All right.
Oh, you can change them because
Just
you're returning an immutable reference the first time, and the second time you're taking a mutable one. And we just saw that doesn't work.
No, that should be okay. I think.
How can that be okay?
You don't need a reference. You don't need to return a reference. Jeez.
Let's go step by step then. What happened?
Because it's determined to return a reference to it.
Would you not return a user?
Yeah, make it unuser then.
No, because then you need a lifetime, haven't you?
That's right.
Next, common lifetime.
I'm getting confused in the web of
The beauty
a
of
web
Rust.
of different scopes and reusability.
Boom.
Okay, so
Right.
walk us through one have you done?
The confusing thing is if you're doing when you're doing traits, you have to
No,
put
it's
self
the Adam bit.
uppercase there. Traits.
I still don't get that bit, but that's what it is. That's not in this.
Why not?
Uh,
Copy.
No, sorry, change like something uppercase self for traits. Let's not cover that.
But yeah, so that's like a chain, a chained API.
Mhm.
Not